You know, as big and beautiful as Finley is, I think she deserves a more beautiful and bigger tank. What's going on, fish folks? Those y'all new to the channel here, my name is Austin and this is Fintastic Freaks, and this around me is my fish room. Aquarium upgrades, I'm sure, are something that if you're like me and have been in this hobby for a while, keeping multiple species of fish, or something you've probably done with something like, some people have done this perhaps with like arowanas or certain catfish, or even with me, some pufferfish. Of course, one example with me being my 5 green spotted puffers here, who now live in a 75-gallon aquarium, but used to live in a 20-gallon long once they were smaller and when I first got them. Another one, of course, being my Maboo puffer Mac, who when we first got him and he was a wee little baby, aww, grew out in a 40-gallon breeder and now is living large inside a 510-gallon plywood tank here. And of course, of all the fish down here in the fish room, we can't talk about those that have been upgraded without talking about the queen of the fish room herself here, Finley, my Fahaka pufferfish.
Her Royal Majesty!
Well, this is quite a throwback in terms of my channel speaking. Finley here wasn't always inside this 150-gallon tank. In fact, if you look back through my videos, about 3 years ago, she used to live inside this 29-gallon tank when we first got her. Fast forward a little over 3 years now to the present, you have about a 15.5-inch fully matured Fahaka puffer adult that, quite frankly, is starting to make this 150-gallon tank look a little small here. That, of course, over these past couple months really, has got me thinking. I mean, after all, we call her the queen of the fish room, so she should have a proper kingdom. But we have a bit of a dilemma here, as when you kind of look around the whole fish room slash basement here, everywhere you walk and look, really, there's a tank in the way. So without, you know, breaking the bank or maxing out credit cards of thousands of dollars for a custom-built aquarium, what do I have in mind to give Finley this appropriate aquarium upgrade? I'm thinking we need to go ahead and build Finley here her own plywood aquarium. Though my videos have been kind of far and in between of each other, you might have noticed that I have some little X's here on the wall. That is because I've kind of already started doing some of the measurements and such, and kind of getting an idea of how I'd want to build this thing. Long story short, from this X, ignore that one, I don't know what I was doing there. From that X to this X over here is about the width of the tank, the maximum width at that, not necessarily the whole front panel of the tank, as the whole tank, I'm thinking in general, should be something of a diamond shape. You can technically make a plywood tank just out of a triangle shape, but it's not very good for water circulation, and you're more likely to put more stress on your seams and such, and of course we don't want that. If you have more stress on the seams, chances are your tank's not going to hold on as long compared to if you do something like a diamond shape, like my 50-gallon Pentagon here. In fact, this is actually pretty much an exact idea of what I'm thinking. The front panel and the side panels won't be the same length. I am thinking the front panel will be longer than the two sides here per se, but once we get exact measurements, I kind of have a finalized idea in my head of what I kind of want to do. But once we get that written down and it starts coming to fruition, of course, we'll definitely share that information down the road here. I'm already starting to collect some materials here. Down here, this is one of the most key ingredients to building a plywood tank here. This is something, of course, well, as you see, we got a couple of pond shield here. We have it in the color of black. I'm gonna get another one here because, well, with pond shield, you wanna at very least do 2 coats. I might even do 3 here just to give it a little extra strength here. But I'm thinking black will be its final color here. Obviously, we'll make video updates, of course, whenever I finally get to building this thing, which I'm hoping will be in a few months here yet. Definitely want to get starting on that project here before the year is through. And the best part is, if we move Finley out of this 150 and into the plywood tank later, the upgrades would not stop there. Because once we move Finley out of her 150 gallon tank, that'll make room for its new occupant, Hercules, my cross river puffer. Hercules! Which then of course will open up a 75 gallon tank, which has all sorts of options in itself there. And one good idea I had for that 75 gallon tank is, hey, that could be an upgrade for this little guy, our lonely bumblebee Oscar, who currently lives in a 50 gallon Pentagon tank, which of course we just showed a moment ago. And for a while, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. But actually for this bumblebee Oscar here, I got something else in mind. I'm thinking this 185 bow front here would be the perfect upgrade for our little Oscar over there. For some of you, this tank looks pretty familiar. We've talked about it a few times, about certain projects I want to do with this that, as you can clearly see based off all the dust and the clutter it's collecting, have not gained much traction. Edges of the tank, to those of you that aren't familiar with this tank, both sides are 19.5 inches, and the peak of the bow here reaches 25 inches. And being a 6-foot long tank, it's a tank that would work pretty good for an Oscar. Some people that have followed this channel for a while will recall that for the longest time I've always been talking about turning this tank here into a big saltwater crane with like a porcupine puffer, maybe a saltwater angel, and some other things I once thought about. Idea first came in my head about doing this tank here versus the saltwater tank that I initially planned. I once did think about maybe getting the Oscar just a 125 and just putting that on a 2-level stand with my angelfish tank, but the problem is, one, I'm probably going to end up paying at least a couple or a few $100s to get a 125. Some people I know can find tanks just along the side of the road or on Marketplace for next to nothing. I never seem to have much luck with that though. And even if I did find a 125 for next to nothing, all the logistics of, emptying out the 125 with all the angelfish and setting that up to where we can position the tanks on its new 2-level stand would be a lot of work on its own. And especially considering over the past 3 years, this is pretty much all the tank here has done, is collect a bunch of clutter and just, it's high time we get some fish in here because it's too big and cool of a tank to just sit here and use as a storage unit. However, I do have plans of turning one of these tanks that we've shown here earlier in the video into a saltwater tank later in the future. More on that in future videos. But that'll wrap up this little fish room update video. Like I said, lots of upgrades coming up. Very excited for these to take shape here. Once we get construction on the plywood tank here going, like I say, hopefully this will be within a few months here. Definitely going to get this started, hopefully before we get into the wintry months, or at least that's the goal. And if you want to follow along and make sure you don't miss any of that and are new here, be sure to click that subscribe button. It'll help you stay in the loop with everything I do here, as well as clicking that little bell here, which will give you a notification every time I upload. But if you like this little video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below. What upgrade are you the most excited for here? Or maybe what's something about our future projects here that maybe you want to know a little bit more about? As always, Fish Fam, thank you all for the support and watching this video. I greatly appreciate every single one of y'all. I will see you all in the next video, Fish Fam. As always, stay fantastic.